Tenant rights group in Kansas City wants landlords to be banned from using background information to make tenant screening decisions, but it will not help the tenants in the long run. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of one of the places where I actually invest, and that's Kansas City, Missouri. So I don't invest within the city of Kansas City itself, but I do invest in Independence, Missouri, which is right next to Kansas City within Jackson County, Missouri. So this is very close to home, and the problems that are coming up in Kansas City right now, they could easily expand over into the place where I am investing. And that's why this is very important to me, okay? So there is a tenants rights group, I believe they're called KC Tenants, right? And they are pushing for all of these anti-landlord laws within the city. And, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare for the landlords who are operating there. And I understand they want there to be certain standards that landlords have to comply with, right? But as I've mentioned many times before in a lot of my videos, 99% of landlords are doing everything right. Their properties are in good shape. They're treating their tenants with respect. Okay, they are following the law and they are operating their businesses with integrity. And there is a very, very small number of landlords who are not doing things right. So what we don't need to do is punish those 99% of landlords who are doing everything right, trying to hit that 1%. That's just dumb. Because what the end result will be is there will be less people out there providing housing. The housing that is available out there will become less affordable. It will become even more difficult for people who need housing to find the housing that they need, okay? And the people who are the bad actors, they're going to continue to act bad regardless of what the laws are. Because if they were, law abiding, they would already be following the laws that are on the books. And that's the other thing, okay? There's already laws on the books to address most of the issues they're talking about. So now they're just pushing for ridiculous stuff that isn't going to actually make things better, but will personally enrich them, which is, stuff like rent control, okay? We're going to push for rent control policies. We're going to push for strong eviction protections. We're going to make it so that even people with evictions on their records, you'll be forced to rent to them. That's the kind of stuff that we see, okay? Stuff that has no benefit whatsoever for the grand majority of tenants out there. The only thing it benefits is those dirt bags who want to break the rules and do everything wrong. And so you're benefiting the bad tenants and you're punishing the good landlords with all of your rules. What kind of idiocy is this? And that's why I want to bring this stuff up, okay? So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. So first of all, do you have any of these tenant unions in your city pushing for this ridiculous nonsense? Keep in mind, this is Missouri we're talking about here. This isn't California. This isn't, New York. This is Missouri. Dead center of the country, a much more right-leaning, landlord-friendly place. And they're, proposing ridiculous rules. Oh, you have to take Section 8 tenants. I don't want to deal with that nonsense. And most landlords don't either, okay? So let's hope that this sort of stuff doesn't pass, or that someone from the statewide level might have to step in and take care of this, because otherwise I could very soon see something like this in my properties, and I don't want to see that. But anyway, let's get into the article. It's interesting. It goes into more details of what exactly is being proposed, and it's written by a person who is actually on our side for once, okay? So this article is coming from the Kansas City Star, and it says, keeping renters' income secret from landlords won't fix Kansas City tenants' problems. And this was the Kansas City Star is subscription. So fortunately, I was able to copy it, into a email before it realized that I wasn't a subscriber. Okay, but I'm going to be reading the article. I might not be able to put all of the words from the article up on the screen, but let's get into it. A new proposed source of income ordinance would actually boost big corporate property owners from out of town. Back when payday lenders were the target of the moment for Kansas City activists, a friend who worked for a regional social welfare nonprofit told me the initial approach was to ban any and all installment loans, including car loans and home mortgages. Their intentions were noble, but their solution, unwise and unworkable. They didn't know what they were doing, my friend said. The current policy target seems to be landlords, and the new activists are an organization called KC Tenants. But new doesn't mean improved. Their policy prescriptions are much, much worse. Specifically, they back an ordinance to ban what's known as source of income discrimination. Right now, landlords are not required to participate in federal housing voucher programs such as Section 8. Landlords, or housing providers as they prefer to be called, well, I don't prefer housing provider, but some landlords do, may base their renting decisions on prospective tenants' income and source, credit history, prior evictions, criminal convictions, or police arrests. The ordinance championed by KC Tenants and midwifed by the mayor would bar all of that. So yeah, pay attention. They just don't want to ban landlords from being able to reject Section 8 tenants, right? They want to ban landlords from being able to screen tenants based on their income and source, their credit history, their prior evictions, criminal convictions, and police arrests, okay? Basically, you would take away our ability to do any background screening. We would be hobbled. Our efforts to screen tenants would be hobbled by this sort of law. Okay, it's idiotic. It is absolutely idiotic. And unfortunately, this tenant association has the mayor of Kansas City on their side. So, once again, we see politicians who aren't thinking things through, who aren't thinking about, hey, is this actually what's good for our city? Think about that for a moment. No, it's not. Okay. And I would appreciate it more if the mayor at least said, hey, maybe there's a compromise that we can come up with, to find a better solution where people with Section 8 vouchers will be able to find housing. They do that in a lot of places where they say, okay, we don't want to force landlords to take these people, but we're going to offer them additional incentives to take them to encourage more to be, willing to accept that idea. But no, we're not seeing that from the Kansas City mayor. They're like, no. We're just going to force it down their throats, whether they want to or not. Okay. And then, the other stuff, give me a break. Okay. I don't want to make it any easier for people with felony convictions, for people with crappy credit who, don't pay their debtors. They already, you didn't pay your credit card bill. You've had a repossession, you owe banks and, student loans and everything else. But now you're telling me, well, I should have to, as a landlord, I should have to house this person who doesn't want to pay anybody that they owe. That's stupid. Okay, but that's exactly what they want to do. They want to blame us for the fact that these people are unable to get housing when it's their own fault. It's their own fault because they didn't pay their bills on time, and now they got bad credit and they have a horrible credit history, and now they're having trouble finding housing. Yes, that's the consequence of that action. Okay. So yeah, why would any landlord want to rent to people with criminal histories or eviction histories or people who we know don't pay their debts? They wouldn't. They would not. Many people don't sympathize with landlords, but imagine for a moment that it's your livelihood. Your goal is to find good long-term tenants who pay rent and who take care of the property. If you have several units, you're also interested in people who will be good neighbors. Income, credit, and criminal background checks help you find desirable tenants. They also keep rents down because if you can avoid costly repairs, legal expenses, and evictions, you can charge less. And that's a very good point. I don't bring that up enough, right? If we don't have to go through eviction, if we don't have to do a lot of expensive repairs, if we don't have to follow ridiculous laws and rules and regulations, we could actually charge less rent because we don't have as many expenses. It's almost like they don't understand how businesses operate. Okay, we are charging all of these additional costs. We are charging to the tenant in the form of higher rents. goodness, it's like they create these solutions, so-called solutions, to make housing more affordable, and they have the opposite effect. Why can't they figure this out? Why don't they just talk to a landlord? That's all they would have to do to be able to figure this out, is talk to a landlord. The landlord would easily be able to explain it to them. And they're like, oh, well, this is, for example, like a rental inspection program. This inspection program, it's only, like $100 a year or something like that, right? But it's not just the rental inspection program. The rental inspection program is on top of all the other rules, all the other regulations, all the other stuff we have to do. And when you add those things up, that is why housing is less affordable now than ever, okay? Now imagine none of those things are available to you. How would you discern between good tenants and bad? Savvy candidates might provide you those documents on their own, or maybe you would need to lean more on your uninformed gut feelings about people. Would that yield a better outcome? What's more, how would you feel as an apartment building tenant or a neighbor to a rental property, knowing that there was no way for the owner to avoid renting to someone with a history of property damage or violent criminal convictions? According to reporting in the Star, landlords were not consulted about the proposed rule. Leaders of the Kansas City Regional Housing Alliance, an advocacy group for housing providers, learned of the 19-page ordinance in late November, months after it had been in the works. There was no oversight as KC Tenants pushes something called co-governance, defined as the process of consulting with the people most impacted by the issue at hand and ensuring those people are involved in the process every step of the way. So yeah, is that any surprise to anyone? So we wrote a landlord law and we didn't involve landlords in it. We didn't even ask them about it. We didn't ask them what the problems would be with about it. We just guessed. We have no clue how businesses operate, but we're just going to guess that this will be perfect and nothing will change, but the landlords will now just 100% shut up. Goodness, these people are dumb. Okay? They are dumb. But this is typical. Absolutely typical. This is the sort of stuff I talk about all the time. They don't consult the people who are the most involved in the process. I don't care what these tenants say, right? They're going to act in their own best interest without any regard whatsoever to whether it is even viable to a business to operate in this manner. Okay? So I'm not going to finish this article. I'm pissed off. I'm angry. I'm ranting. And I think you should read the whole thing. I'll put a link to it in the description. Be advised, though, that it is subscription required to read the Star. A lot of these local newspapers, and this is another kind of off-topic rant, right? But I oftentimes I'm trying to read articles about what's going on in terms of real estate investing, in terms of being a landlord, and a lot of these local newspapers now are subscription. And it makes absolutely no sense. And let me explain why, okay? There are hundreds of newspapers throughout the entire country. If I was to go out and subscribe to every single one of these just so I could read an article every once in a while, it would cost me hundreds of dollars a month, okay? And why would I do that? I would say even with the subscription-based papers, I could still get the same information from a free source 99% of the time, okay? So the problem that these papers are going to have going forward is that, hey, they're not going to pay for your subscription. They're not, okay? So it isn't a viable business model to have a subscription-based newspaper when, a lot of the subscribers are like, hey, I don't want to have, hundreds or even a dozen different subscriptions to newspapers just so I can get my news when I can get it for free elsewhere online. Okay. So, just a gripe of mine. I get real angry about different stuff. And, I think that I should, just stick with the free sources for now because it's completely, like I said, it's not viable to be getting a whole bunch of different subscriptions to newspapers.